All right. We're ready for our special Halloween edition of Under the Dome. And like Michael Myers in the movie itself and the whole franchise, last Sunday in the Dome was a bit of a scare fest because here you have a game pretty well in hand for. Hang on, we'll turn this down so we don't have so much bass feedback. Here you have a game that was pretty much in hand for most of the game. We have 2 fumbles. One results into a touchdown for Chicago, and we have to sweat out the last 3 minutes of the ball game because they were within striking distance of actually pulling off an upset. So, yeah, Halloween came a little early for us. So we're going to break this game down. We're going to talk about next week and the maddeningly inconsistent offense for the New Orleans Saints. I'm your host tonight, Alan Ulrich, and I'm here tonight on this Halloween with my partner, Sean Williams. How you doing tonight, Sean?
I'm on a 5-game winning streak. I hope y'all like my Halloween costume. I decided to step outside the box this week. I'm dressed as a division leader on a 5-game winning streak. Sorry, man. These are the jokes. Anyway, thank everybody for joining us tonight on this Halloween night. Hope everybody's doing good and getting all the treats and none of the tricks. We want to thank Fan First Productions for sponsoring our show. We want to invite everyone, please support us by going on to YouTube and onto iTunes and subscribing to our podcast. One that has so far, and look forward to enter guys as we can. Well, alluded to a 5-game winning streak. If you look back to the day after the New England loss, you could have gotten the odds for the New Orleans Saints would right now be riding a 5-game winning streak and be half a game in first place.
No. Honestly, as bad as they looked against New England and as bad as they looked against Minnesota, you know, I said this last week and I'll say it again. Who knew with that sack of Cam Newton by Cam Jordan on the first series of that Carolina game, that suddenly this defense would do a complete 180 and not only play like they're capable of, but be a side of the ball that we are depending on to win. Because honestly, this offense has not played to the traditional Sean Payton, Drew Brees standards. And I don't mean that in the way of, well, you know, Drew isn't throwing for 3 touchdowns and 300 yards and just lighting up the scoreboard like he has been. I'm talking about for the second time in 3 weeks, our offense is like 2 of 8 on third down, 2 and 11 of third down. You know, we're not leading the league in third down conversions. Drew was 23 of 28 last week, or I should say Sunday.
I think he only 23 of
5 passes. He only threw 5 incompletions all ball game, and yet at no point did you feel like it didn't even seem like it was that good. And it was just under 300 yards. I think it was 299. And that includes the big bomb to Ted Ginn Jr. That's 5 minutes of the ball game. But
your immediate reaction on Facebook that you do every week after the game made a very good point that I never really thought about until I read it. And you said, was it just I'm paraphrasing here. I can't remember the exact quote, but something to the effect of, or did this seem like the most pedestrian 299-yard performance Drew Brees ever put up?
Absolutely. It was almost like the majority of his completions, well, I know they were, the majority of his completions were to the running backs. and some passes to, well, you had the big pass to Brandon Coleman on the first series, and the long pass to Ted Ginn Jr. But then you had some, just intermediate passes to Michael Thomas sprinkled in with a lot of, check down passes to the running backs and some screens. And, while it's effective, it's high percentage throws, it doesn't feel like that quick strike. No matter where we are in the field, we're going to convert third downs. We are in scoring position. No matter where we are, we can just move this ball at will. It never felt that way, especially on third downs where they were just coming up short. Now, that being said, the Bears defense is not a joke defense. It was a very good defense. The Bears are really about, I'd say, about a draft and a half, or maybe a draft and a couple of good free agents away from really fielding a strong team that's going to be a challenge over the next couple seasons.
Well, you heard all the jokes being made about Trubisky following this, or leading up to and following this game, about how he was a rookie. Well, I want you guys to stop and consider something. Look back point last year at where Jared Goff and Wentz, what they look like on the field, and look where he is this year.
Yeah.
Progression.
I'm not ready to put him in
the most difficult position on the field to play.
Yeah, I'm not putting him in the Carson Wentz and Jared Goff category yet, because honestly, he's not going to play with that kind of offense. He is going to be a game manager who's expected to make some big time throws occasionally, but for the most part, he's going to be a game manager whose job is to throw high percentage completions. This is as long as John Fox stays head coach, but throw high percentage completions and hand that ball off to those two good running backs. But yeah, the Saints offense has not put together 4 consistent quarters. We got a good first half against Detroit. We got a good second half against Green Bay. Yeah, Green Bay. We got a couple of good series, like that opening drive against Chicago. But at the same time, it took a lot of breaks for us to score. Now, granted, the Bears lined up off sides. That was an easy call to make. The horrible, horrible injury that Zach Miller had gotten, it resulted in taking away a touchdown. And I know a lot of people are upset about that, especially in Chicago. But listen, if you go back to, what was it, 2012, 2013, maybe even earlier than that, the Calvin Johnson reception against the Bears, where he clearly catches the ball, comes down with 2 feet, but he's got the ball, he's holding it out here. He never pulls it back into himself, holds it out here, falls down out of bounds. He already had 2 feet down with the ball in his hand out here, falls down, and when he comes down, he hits the ground, the ball bounces out of his hand, out of the end zone. It was ruled incomplete. The infamous Dez Bryant play against Green Bay in the playoffs. He catches the ball, comes down with it, never pulls it into his body, keeps it out here. So when it hits the ground, you see the ball come up. Again, not a completion. It's for the NFL. They want to see you pull that ball in, hold it, roll over, enter everything with the ball never moving in your grasp the whole time, unless, of course, you're reaching across the goal line. Then if you're extending, that's different. But if you make a catch in the end zone, you've got to pull it all the way in. That's just the way the rules read now. So, yeah, you got that break. And of course, you know why Zach Miller let the ball go, of course. He dislocated his leg. You watch that leg turn to rubber, and I guess
it reminded me a lot of Barry Greer's injury against San Francisco a few years back.
It reminded me of, now this goes back a long way. Some of y'all may not have been alive when this play happened, but in 1988, the Super Bowl, Tim Krumrie for the Cincinnati Bengals defensive lineman breaks his leg, and you just see it float out there like rubber. And yeah, that was early in the game too. And it was one of those weird plays, you know. It wasn't that he got rolled up under. It wasn't anything, you know, like you can say, oh, okay, he got hit right there. No, it just snapped. And Tim Krumrie was never the same after that. I don't think he ever played again after that injury. But that's what it reminded me of. Every time I looked at it, I was like, that looks like Tim Krumrie's leg.
Well, anyway. I got a bit of an update on Miller doing the research for tonight, and had a second surgery. There's referred to as standard follow-up procedure to what was done yesterday. They do believe that what the concern was yesterday about being able to save his leg, they believe that that's at this point doesn't seem to be as big a concern as it was yesterday. All things seem to be trending up and looking good for him at this point right now.
Yeah, I read a little bit about it too, and apparently it was one of the main arteries that was torn, along with the dislocated leg. I thought it was just broken, but that's even worse. And they credited the doctor on the field for the Bears that elevated his leg quickly and realized, you know, it was filling with blood and got the surgery on it right away. Yeah, they didn't say an amputation was likely at any point, but they did say that they were worried that it may have to, and they had to do a graft to repair that artery. But yeah, I really, you know, I think his playing career is over, but I don't want him. I want him to be able to walk again. You know, I want him to be able to at least live somewhat of a normal post-football life. So yeah, our prayers stay with Zach, that he continues on this good road to recovery, that he has no setbacks, and he can get healthy again. I know a lot of Bears fans are really mad because of the replaying of the injury, but it really was about the reception, whether or not that was a completion, and the refs were looking at this. And because of that, you had to look at that horrible injury again and again and again and again. And, you know, I was at the game Sunday, and most of the people in the stands weren't looking at whether or not he caught the ball. They were looking at that injury. So horrible.
Unfortunately, that's a part of the game. I mean, you look back at guys like that, guys like Theismann. It's a violent game, and people get hurt. And I took a barrage 2 weeks ago when I said off to Aaron Rodgers breaking his collarbone, that I didn't feel bad for Aaron Rodgers. I had the rest of the season to feel bad for Aaron Rodgers. I'd feel bad for him just as soon as the Saints-Packers game was over with. And I love to win more than most people. I'm competitive to a fault. Things like that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm thankful. If they're as crazy as this sounds, I'm thankful that what happened to him happened, that there was no sort of intent involved, if that makes any sense. No player hit him dirty. It was just playing the game. I know that probably doesn't make him feel any better, but for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no doubt you can see. I saw him land awkwardly because it was like he was trying to make sure he was inbounds, but at the same time bring the ball in. And it's like he tried to take a stutter step, so he didn't take too long of a leap or long of a stride to miss, to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And that's really what did it, because he came down as he's trying to stutter and his leg just gave out, and that was dislocation. Okay. Let's talk about the good and the bad here. Marshawn Lattimore and Mark Ingram.
That's two opposite ends of the spectrum this week.
Yeah, it is. And the bad part about it is Ingram actually had a very good game. It's just two critical moments when you're trying to put this game away. And if he doesn't fumble, you at least get 6 points out of each. Each is a field goal. But if you get a touchdown, we're talking about a 27 maybe to 6 win, and it doesn't feel like how it feels.
Let me ask you this, and I heard this point brought up on local sports talk radio. Do you remember the play Ingram ran off tackle to the right, and he hurdled the guy, and the guy just caught one leg, Ingram, to do his impersonation of a lawn dart on his head?
Yeah, I saw that play.
Do you think that had any effect on his performance at all?
No,
because I'm going to tell you, sitting here watching it unfold on TV, the camera was right in his grill when he stood up, but nobody was home. Played the rest of the game, but maybe that might not have affected his performance somewhat.
I think it surprised him a little bit, but if you watch, he comes down on his face mask and his forearm, okay, at the same time. So it wasn't like what you normally see where the head hits and it bounces. Usually you can tell a concussion is going to happen because the head bounces off the turf or off the ground. You see that good hard bounce directly back up, and the player just kind of lays there. Ingram was more like, it looked worse than it really was, because he went head over heels, his forearm comes down, the face mask comes out at the same time, and he lands on the ball, the face mask, and the forearm. So it was kind of like I saw some of the replays because NFL Network on demand shows you the 16-minute recap of the game. So they do show him on the sidelines, and he looked surprised, but then he looked okay after that. No, because there was such a long period between that play and when he fumbles. Quite frankly, the fumble is just the way the Bears play defense. One guy grabs you, and this goes back to Vic Fangio, and you think about the Dome Patrol era, because he was the linebackers coach for the Saints during the Dome Patrol era. The one player grabs you, the other one grabs at the ball. So, and you saw that throughout the game where when they tackle in gangs, and there's always somebody pulling at the ball. So the first fumble, Ingram's going, somebody gets a hold of his arm and just yanks the ball out from underneath it. So, it's just ball security. He's got to practice better ball security.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you go back, this is like, I want to say maybe the third year in a row. It's about this time of the year Ingram has that game where he fumbles twice.
Yeah, you think about the Kansas City and Seattle games. Yeah, Kansas City and Seattle.
That was this in the same way that he did a year ago, where he sits Mark for the beginning of the next game.
Yeah. Well, you really can't sit him, although he did sit him for that last drive that made it ended with a field goal. He didn't go in anymore. They had Kamara go in, or Kamara go in for that series. You know, he needs it, it's almost like he gets careless with the ball. He stops holding it. You know, the thing is, you got to hold the ball high and tight. He stops holding it up here or putting two arms on the ball when he gets in the crowd. He starts carrying it lower and more away from his body. And when you do that, that's inviting a fumble. In the Kansas City game, when he tried to go over the top, get that first down, you remember he had the ball well away from his body. You could stick your whole arm between where the ball was and his stomach area. So it was easy to punch out. And I think that was the case in the first fumble. Now, the second fumble, he's really fighting for yards, and they're getting pieces of him, but not tackling him. They're not wrapping him up, and he's trying to fight through those arm tackles. And that's where one guy holds him and the other guy starts ripping at the ball. And that's how that one came out. And a lot of people, I can't tell because I haven't seen a really good replay. It looked like it in the dome to me, on that second one, that his knee was down as the ball was coming out. But it's one of those where the officials say the call on the field's a fumble. We don't see enough on the field to overturn it, so we don't get the break. That was the one break we really didn't get. We got the one with Alvin Kamara, and I guess that was the makeup call. I don't know.
You made a point earlier, and in I remember one of our first conversations that we ever had. We were talking about Super Bowl run, all the things that have to fall in place and go right. You got the ball's got to bounce the right way, and you've got to get those breaks. And I think it's worth mentioning that Sunday looked like a flashback to the past, only couldn't get out of their own way was the Bears instead of the Saints, because the game that Chicago played yesterday, Sunday, reminded me so much of several of the games from a year ago. You see a team that fights their lives, and they get right down to the end, and here and there winds up costing you the win.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we got the lucky interception at the end of the game. Now we had 3 chances of getting an interception, so we were still -1 on turnovers. But I told you before, turnovers is the most important stat in football. The big thing that you got that you didn't get in the first 4 games that you're getting now in these most recent games is the Saints are getting careless with the football. We were lucky, and we got some breaks like you were talking about earlier, where we had some potential turnovers that were ruled not to be turnovers. We could have easily lost that one that Alvin Kamara fumbled. And we had, 3 interceptions just hit people in the hands. I mean, one of them went right into A.J. Klein's breadbasket, and he dropped it. Thank God, Marshawn Lattimore catches that ball at the end of the game really to seal it. But, we're starting to lose the turnover battles in games now. We lost it against Green Bay, and we lost against Chicago. Fortunately, both offenses were not good enough to make us pay for that. But eventually we're going to run into a team like the Falcons, like the Rams, like the Bills, like the Redskins. Those are all games where we could, we lose that turnover battle, we're losing that ball game. So, we're going to have to get better and make our own breaks where we're winning the turnover battle. We're getting those turnovers. We're not giving this ball away.
I agree completely. We've been today, and I put it like this. Yeah, for us to be sitting in a position where we're on a 5-game. And, I mean, delusional about play it out. I'm not puffing my team up to be anything more than what it is. Normally, Aaron Rodgers doesn't break his collarbone 7 days before they play us.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, you're not going to play 2 rookie quarterbacks making their first start, at least in terms of the New Orleans Saints. Normally, you're not going to have what very easily could be considered subpar performances by this offense rise to the occasion and tuck the game away for you. And we've been the beneficiaries of some fortunate things and some lucky breaks, absolutely. But as you said, we're going to have to keep getting better and continue improving on the things that are wrong. The biggest thing that my biggest takeaway from the Chicago game was that if we continue to play this way, it's going to streak is going to be something that we're looking at in the rearview mirror. We're not good, and it could very easily be Sunday that starts. You're not going to be able to perform against a division that always comes to the Superdome and plays you tough, like Tampa Bay. You're not going to be able to get away with playing the way that you have the past 2 or 3 weeks.
You can't, yes, you can't give away games. Even the most putrid offenses in the world can take advantage of turnovers and win a ball game. It's almost – it's tough because the defense is playing so well. And they're making stops. You're not watching the defense going, oh, God, just please hold them to 3 points, and watching that team just march on down the field. Granted, the final statistics show that the Bears got over 100 yards rushing, that, they were pretty close to us in time possession and all those things. But really, it was 3 plays offensively that really made the bulk of the Bears' offensive attack. You had the big run by I forgot which running back it was now, but when they were backed up on their own goal line, and he broke past. I think Manti Te'o got sucked in the trash and couldn't fill the gap in time, and he ran off for about 50 yards. You had when the Saints called a cover 0 formation or coverage. So they had everybody going in after Trubisky. It was a 3rd down play. The hole opens up, and he gets the big yardage where he runs all the way down. That leads to a touchdown. And then the third one, I think, was one of the deep passes. One of the early ones he threw to Trey McBride, where he got a nice big completion to kind of get the ball going for them. They ended up settling for a field goal, but it still wasn't. It was a good drive for them. You take those 3 plays out. Now, granted, I know that is part of the final statistics. It's part of the game. You can't just discount that. But those 3 plays out, you're holding the Bears to under 200 yards total offense. You're holding them to a terrible 3rd down conversion. You're probably limiting them to at least 6 points, in the game instead of 12. Because the big run by Trubisky leads to that touchdown. Although, here's my pet peeve of the game: the mythical face mask call, where I've watched the replay several times. I can't see at any point from the time the tight end leaves the offensive line till he catches the ball. At any point is there a face mask. They clearly grab his shoulder, and you can see the official throw the flag as soon as he grabs his shoulder, saying that's a face mask, and the official's actually behind the play. So I don't know. I still don't know what he's looking at. and that was a third down play. You know, that
They gave him first and goal.
Yeah, gave him first and goal, and they score a touchdown in the next series. I think that's kind of a makeup call because they felt like they blew the call with Miller in the end zone. So they kind of gave him that one, but that was a horrible call. You hold them to a field goal right there, you know, because I doubt at that point of the game they're going for it on fourth down and get nothing. You know, it would still have been a 17-9 ball game. You're still within a touchdown and a 2-point conversion of tying it. No, I'm sorry. Yes, you're still a touchdown, 2-point conversion of tying it. They didn't tell me math was going to be in this thing.
Math After Dark. That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so that kind of stuff, those three plays really made a difference in the score, but it doesn't show you exactly how dominant that game was. And that leads us into talking about Marshawn Lattimore. That was an impressive game by Marshawn Lattimore. I watched him most of the game, and I'll be honest with you, Trubisky never even looked his way the entire game. He just went after Ken Crawley every time. And Lattimore stuck with his man. I shared on Twitter, Brian Baldinger does a great job of breaking down some film for everybody. I shared a play, and I said, look, this doesn't show up in the stat sheets. This is not something that, you know, you probably would even paid attention to. But Lattimore shut play. It was just a throwaway. It just showed you how good he was when they tried to run a rub route, a pick, you know, the legal picks, and they were running legal picks all game. That was driving me insane, all the pick plays. You could really see it, especially at the stadium. You could see them, what they were trying to do to create space for these receivers. They were picking people left and right to try and get somebody open and get some separation. And he shut that shit down fast. And it was unbelievable. It really was. And then the two times I noticed that he really threw at him, one was a near interception and one was an interception. So, and like Drew Brees, when Drew Brees came to the Saints, I've waited 51 years for a cornerback to play at this kind of level for the Saints. And if you look at the sad, pathetic history of the New Orleans Saints cornerbacks, we've never, ever had a cornerback play like this, ever. You can name any cornerback you can think of for the Saints. None of them have been able to do what Lattimore has done for these 7 weeks.
I agree. And this is coming from someone that played cover corner. Yeah, from a lot of Saints fans in my interaction is he seems so scared to say, because they're just sitting there waiting for the other shoe to fall. Lattimore to have a bad game, or for somebody to come along and completely blow this team out. And well, here we are. This is what we knew was coming, you know. Mm-hmm. And I hate that. That's unfortunate because these guys have earned be considered a very good team this year. I think
it's conditioning. It's conditioning. You're used to this defense not playing to a good level. You're used to this defense just yeah, like you said, waiting for that shoe to drop. You're waiting that defense just to eventually have that game where they can't stop anybody. We gotta score 52 points because they're scoring 51. That kind of game. You're waiting for that to happen, and it's not happening. I have never, and going back to Lattimore again, I have never seen offenses, quarterbacks, look at a rookie starting his 6th game, his 7th game, whatever, and say, you know what, I ain't throwing over there. I'll take my chances with Ken Crawley, the guy who's got a year experience. That's just unbelievable. It really is. And when you do decide, well, let's just see if he's really as good as advertised. Oh yeah, he's good. He's good as advertised. It's amazing. You see that on other teams. You don't see that for the Saints.
Making some adjustment, but it's kind of adjustment that I can handle, and I can live with that. Token. We've covered how people are looking at the defense, kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Conversely, looking at the Saints offense, they're so used to running down the field, and as you alluded to earlier, third downs, efficient in the red zone. Is it time for people to look at this Saints offense and say that there's something wrong just because they're doing it differently?
If it wasn't for the horrible third down conversions, and if it wasn't for having to settle for field goals instead of scoring touchdowns, or granted, Lutz is playing like Morton Anderson did. I'm just jinxed him, I know, but I mean, he's playing at a Morton Anderson type of level. It's that third down conversion rate that bothers me, because that's just not normal. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that Willie Snead has not been a part of this offense now for 7 weeks. He had the suspension, followed by the hamstring injury, followed by, this past week where he did nothing. I think he was in there for 4 plays. They talked over and over again about how Snead was the best route runner in the Saints offense. I don't know what's going on with him. It's a concern. Fleener had 2 or 3 good games early in the season, and he's disappeared. You saw a lot more of Josh Hill in this game, and Josh Hill is just a limited athlete. I mean, there's no polite way of saying it. He's not a Jimmy Graham. He's not a Ben Watson. He's not a guy who is going to make an impact as a starting tight end. You need your starting tight end in there on third downs, getting those favorable matchups against safeties and linebackers to move the chains. We're not getting it. So without Snead in there and without Fleener contributing, I think that's part of the reason why that third down conversion has been so bad. You're just not getting – you can't create those favorable matchups. They know about Michael Thomas. Ted Ginn Jr. is your speed guy. Brandon Coleman's your run-blocking receiver that he can do stuff in the red zone for you, but it's going to be hard for him to get isolation to get those first downs. You kind of have to scheme him open. So, yeah, you need somebody to step up and become that guy that moves the chains on third down in the receiving core, because relying on Ingram and Alvin Kamara to do it for you over and over and over again is not going to work. So, yeah, that's what's wrong with the offense right now.
They're going to have that. They're eventually, this team, and the further into the season that it gets, the more likely that it's going to be the next time they take the field that we see it. They're going to have that game where they hit that wall, where the other team has a priority to stop Mark Ingram, to stop Alvin Kamara, AK-41.
Yeah.
And as I've heard it put several different places, eventually are going to have to get back to needing Drew Brees to have a Drew Brees day, where he has the 3 touchdowns, he has the 400 yards passing, and we haven't seen that yet. Now, I'm not going to necessarily say that's a bad thing, because this team has won 5 games in a row. without it.
But what was the big rumor this week? Trade deadline was today, 3:00. It's come and gone. But what was the big rumor we had leading up to this weekend and so forth was the return of Jimmy Graham. Yeah. Why did that rumor get so much traction? Because people are seeing, the trouble the Saints are having on third down conversions, and the trouble they're having in scoring in the red zone. People are used to seeing the Saints convert third downs. And again, I can't. It's not the missing of Brandon Cooks, because Ted Ginn is made up for Brandon Cooks' loss. Ted Ginn has surpassed my expectations. I honestly thought he was going to be one of those guys that was going to drop a lot of passes. He's fast. He would probably score a couple of touchdowns, have a couple big plays, but then when you need him to catch a pass, he was going to drop it. He hasn't really done that. Think about it. I mean, you have to go all the way back to preseason to really think of a critical Ted Ginn drop. You just haven't seen that. So it's the Willie Snead not being there and playing to the level of the 2015 and 2016 Willie Snead. We haven't seen that. Coleman's not going to be that guy because Coleman isn't that kind of receiver. He doesn't run routes the way Snead does. And that's what's missing in the offense. You're trying now to do it with Michael Thomas. The problem is everyone knows about Michael Thomas now, and they're going to take him away from you. They're rolling the coverage to his side. So, we need to have Willie Snead come in and play at the level we're used to seeing him play. And I think that when that happens, the offense will get better.
Well, if we hadn't proposed trading Kikaha to Seattle for Jimmy Graham, TJ Williams for T.Y. Hilton, huh?
Well, somebody read something. Somebody, joke. Yeah. We don't. I'm not even going to go there right now.
No, we don't need to get derailed.
Some people need to have that keyboard taken away from them because you're getting stupid. And that's not a bad. That's not a large leap for you. You just this isn't Madden. You're not dumb.
I can respect a follower of this team wanting better, wanting to see quality players coming into the organization, but at the same time, there's a big part of in the back of my mind that's saying, won 5 games in a row. That's something that you haven't done since what, 13?
Mm-hmm.
It's been 4 seasons since you've done that. Now, no matter how they did it or what happened along the way to enable them to win those 5, it doesn't really make any difference. The only thing that you can do is line up every Sunday and play the team that's across the line of scrimmage from you and continue to win.
Mm-hmm.
After the last game of week 17, they're going to count up who won the most and who lost the most. Or the top end of that spectrum goes to the playoffs. The bottom end of that spectrum starts preparing for the draft. And
I was going to say, here's the issue. Here's the issue. The issue that people have right now when it comes to watching this team play. They are used to the 2009 through 2011 kind of Saints teams where you were seeing 30-7 kind of games, 42-21, where the Saints, especially at home, just roll a team. How did the Detroit game end? It ended with a touchdown. The Green Bay game. Detroit, it was touchdown, field goal, touchdown. Scoring every time he touched the ball. Thomas Morstead never plays. Thomas Morstead is just an extra guy out there. That's what they're used to, and I'm used to it. So when the Saints offense isn't doing that, you're going, well, there's something really wrong with this team now. And again, going back to the third down conversions, I can deal with a 20-12 kind of ball game if we're winning time possession and we're converting third downs. You know, we're still 6 out of 10 on third downs or 8 out of 12 on third downs, whatever it may be. I can deal with that. I can't deal with the fact that we're just not converting those first downs consistently. And that's the issue. So when you go back and start looking at these tougher teams coming up down the line and you're not playing the offense that you're used to seeing, now you're starting to go, well, you know what? That Buffalo game is going to be pretty damn tough. I don't know if we can win that game. Or, you know, that Rams game is really going to be a killer. Or we've never beaten the Redskins except for 2009. We haven't beaten the Redskins under Sean Payton. You know, we're like 1-3 against the Redskins under Payton. 2006, 2012, and 2015, we got our ass kicked by the Redskins. You know,
that was one of the 2 games that I consider to be the absolute lowest point that season.
Yeah.
Skins and the Eagles games. Consider that to be the very lowest point of the Sean Payton era.
Yeah, in 2009, really, the Redskins were kicking our ass most of that game. We get the Meacham steal, and we get the last-second touchdown to force an overtime. We get the questionable turnover in overtime that led to the field goal to win the game. But we never really felt like we were in control in that ball game. And if I think it was Kai Forbath, I think that's who the kicker was back then. But if the Redskins kicker makes that kick, we're in no position to win that ball game in 2009. Our streak ends there. Yep. So we were very close to being 0-4 against the Redskins. I don't feel good about that game at all. I really don't. You know, so yeah, we need this offense to get better in a hurry, and we need to do it against the Bucs.
Yes.
The Bucs are a struggling team. They seem rudderless. I would not be surprised to see those coaches fired at the end of this year because, once again, the expectations were, and we said it here too, you know, hey, Tampa Bay has a good shot of dethroning Atlanta, you know, win the NFC South. We expect them to go back to the playoffs for the first time since 2008. They've got a ton of talent on offense. They got a lot of good players on defense, and they look like crap. You know, they find ways to lose even when they're playing well. So we have to go out there and get well against Tampa Bay, especially at home, beat the crap out of them, kick them in the teeth early, and take away all hope that they have any chance of competing in this ball game, and make them think that, hey, you know what? Go ahead and start looking at college football right now because you can be picking in the top 5 of the draft again next year. You and your new coaching staff and you guys that are wearing those alarm clock jerseys, about half of y'all aren't going to be on this team next year, you know. Yeah, so, yeah, those 1970s digital alarm clock numbers, that's hideous. It's awful. Those are awful jerseys. Awful.
I hate even more than Tampa. I think that the Seattle ones are even uglier.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot you can do with Seattle's jerseys. I mean, yeah, you know, as long as you don't wear that neon green, that alternate color. God, I feel like, you know, people should be wearing PPE stuff around them when they had that neon green stuff. You know, get your jacket, get your hard hat, your safety goggles, because look, you got a whole bunch of safety guys out there in the field right now. You know, I mean, that's what it feels like when Seattle wears that neon green. But yeah,
you know, I don't mean to kick anyone when they're down, but and talking about on the air something that we made reference to our season kickoff show when we had the Bucs, when we had Dave on with for the Bucs. Reference to hurricane coming in, just before the season, and you know, I want to win the division more than anybody. On it bad enough to wish no, not even remotely. But when something like that happens in our division, generally speaking, we're the only one see South that has really had to deal with that up to this year. Here you've had the one that came through Houston, and are being affected by that to some degree. You had the one that hit Florida, and of both the Buccaneers and the Dolphins.
Well, it took away their bye week.
That people were really speaking of them being a winning team this year. You know, when your infrastructure in you're basically destroyed, that puts you behind the 8 ball. It shows legitimately to everyone that knows what we're looking at. If just because everyone can't see the effects that something like that has, doesn't mean that it's not there. And I wonder if maybe team,
there's something going on there. I don't know if it's just hurricane related. I think there's something else fundamentally wrong with that team. You've got players questioning coaches. You've got a lot of snipping. Was it Gerald McCoy got so aggravated with people, kneeling down, or criticizing the players for kneeling down, or criticizing his play? He wants to, he was challenging fans to come to one Buc place, and he was going to fight him in the street. I mean, you can't be sucked into that kind of stuff, because let's face it, there are trolls everywhere, and a lot of there are people who are angry at Tampa, and they're going to take their frustrations out on the players and question their heart and everything else. You can't pay attention to that noise. You've got to turn off social media. Don't read that stuff, and just focus on your play. When you get to the point where you're challenging fans to come meet you and say this shit to you face to face, you've lost, because the trolls live for that. That's what they love, to hear you get thrown off that badly. So I wish we could have gotten one of the guys on this week. I know, they had some issues and stuff, and we couldn't hook up, but hopefully for the end of the season, when we play them again, we do have a chance to have them come on, because I'd like to get what their take is, since they follow that team so closely. I look at the Tampa Bay, the Tampa Tribune, and a couple of newspapers, and read the fan comments and some of the editorials from the beat writers. But there's something to this team right now, and I don't know enough about Tampa to put my finger on it. I just get the feeling that the chemistry is just not there, and it's showing. And this coaching staff is not not a staff that can overcome chemistry issues. And we saw in 2014 and in 2015, if you don't have good chemistry on a team, you're not going to win very many games, because when the losing starts, that's when the finger pointing starts, and you start questioning, the direction of the coaching staff, the question and direction of the team, the feeling that this franchise is cursed, all those things. Why can't this team win? Well, it's that guy over there. If we get rid of this guy, we'll be a better team. Or that guy's not doing his job. This guy isn't putting out the extra effort, staying at practice, putting the film work and stuff like that in. And when you get to that point, that's not a good thing. Just really is.
Because then it's just a matter of shifting blame from one moment to the next. It's his fault. Well, if it's not his fault, then it's got to be his fault. And if it's not his fault, then it's both of their faults put together. They just don't realize that they're both involved.
Yep.
It's so focused on finding out who's to blame for what's wrong, spend no time, effort, or energy towards wrong and making it what's right.
Yep. And hey, here's the thing too. You can turn this around.
Franchise in the National Football League that can encyclopedia on that subject.
Yeah. Yep. And here's the thing though. All it takes is a couple of breaks and suddenly that team gets on a roll and starts getting confidence, and they're going to be a challenge. That's why it's so important that we kick them down early, so they get in that mindset of, oh, here we go again. We're going to lose this. You know, who's not doing their job? How do you let Michael Thomas run wide open like that? Who's afraid to tackle Mark Ingram? Why are you letting Alvin Kamara get all these extra yards? You're not wrapping up. You need them to be doing that on the sidelines, like Miami did back in London, where they're screaming at the coaches and they're yelling at each other on the sidelines. You cannot have them get any hope that if we just keep doing what we're doing, we eventually win this ball game. You want them to quit early, because if you just beat it out of them early, they're not going to come back. They're going to quit. They're just going to take the paycheck, take the ass kicking, and go home. And that's how you win against bad teams. And Tampa right now is a bad team. But bad teams win when they get confidence.
And I'm going to tell you, if there's any doubt whatsoever in your mind that we face Sunday is not going to come pissed off, especially after the beating that they took against Carolina. They're on a 3 or 4 game losing streak now. If you don't think that they're going to come in pissed off and ready to play and wanting to slam and skull drag the Saints, you are sadly mistaken. Every time that the Buccaneers come to the Superdome, this team bitterly tough.
Well, what better way to get your confidence up is to beat a team, one of the hottest teams in the NFL on a 5-game winning streak. That's how you get your confidence back, and you feel like you can turn your season around. But that's why I said you've got to make them in the game feel like, here we go again. You want to see their heads down. You want to see them just go through the motions, alligator arm passes, because they're afraid to get hit, or they're not focused on winning. They're just focused on taking our ass kicking and getting the hell out of here. That's the kind of opponent you want to have. You don't want to have an opponent that feels like they can do whatever they want. And that means knocking the crap out of Jameis Winston early. That means Marshawn Lattimore just erasing Mike Evans from the ball, from the ball game. Where Winston doesn't even want to go to him.
I tell anybody that's planning on being at the Dome Sunday, there is going to be a lady there in attendance. She will be wearing I'm trying to remember. I want to say it's to all you lay people, an away jersey is the white ones. The black one is the home ones.
Yeah.
She'll be wearing an away Kenny Vaccaro jersey. It's going to be Mama Donnie Lambert is going to be in the house come Sunday repping Kenny Vaccaro. So any of you see her and let her know that you're behind her.
Absolutely. And hey, Kenny Vaccaro's got to have a big game, because they're going to go to O.J. Howard, and that's going to be his man to cover O.J. Howard. He's not going to be able to sit in the box and play the run and go after Winston. It's going to have to be – a different scheme than what we saw with the Bears. Well, with the Bears, they're They're limited offensively. They're going to run the ball. No, Tampa's going to throw this ball. They're going to come off the field. Come off the bus wanting to throw the football against his secondary. So Ken Crawley's got to step up and play better than he has these past couple of weeks. Von Bell's got to play better. We need turnovers. We need Cam Jordan and Okafor to step up and get some pressure. And let's mention this real quick. I know we're a little over time, but let's just mention something real quick. I'm going to throw this out here for Kikaha. Thank you. Stumbling over my own tongue right now, but let's talk about him real quick. He's been a healthy scratch these past couple of weeks, and the speculation he was going to get traded today. Here's my spin on this for what it's worth. Here's a guy on his second reconstructed knee surgery in the same leg. He's had 3 total. Is scratching from the game because in Green Bay, you're playing in a wet field. Sean Payton made a big deal about having the longer spike shoes, and he even offered pedicures for the players and things like that. Then against Chicago, which is a limited passing attack, a heavy run-oriented game, you don't need a pass rusher out there. You need guys who can play the run. That's his weakness. So once again, he was inactive. So was Muhammad. Again, a pass rusher, inactive because you're playing a run-heavy team. Let's see what happens this week with Tampa. If he's inactive again, then we can officially say that Trey Hendrickson. I cannot say anybody's names tonight. Trey Hendrickson has officially taken his job as the number 3 guy who rotates in behind Okafor and Cam Jordan as a pass rusher because he can also play the run. I think you're going to see him active this Sunday. I'd be surprised if he is inactive and Muhammad's still inactive. I think you'll see him come in for certain packages again this time because you're dealing with a mobile quarterback and you're dealing with where you're going to need more of a pass rushing attack. Let's see what happens this Sunday. I think if he's active, he's got to have an impact in the game, and we definitely need an impact from Willie Snead. We can't have another week where Willie Snead's in for 4 plays or something ridiculous like that. He needs to be out there, the majority of the snaps. They play 60 snaps. He's got to be out there for at least 35 or 40 of them, and he has to get those first downs. So let's see what happens on those things. That's something to watch for this Sunday.
Well, I think that without mountain out of a molehill, I think that there is a lot to be gained or lost. I really do, because this team can turn the corner, establish themselves as a player in this division, the whole 9 yards, or the way that the next 4 coming up fall into place. Something should go wrong against Tampa, then this could be the beginning of the end.
I don't know
team.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish your point.
Like you alluded to a moment ago, just waiting for that next piece to go down. That's sort of been the way that things have gone in recent history with the Saints. You just barely lose this one, and then you just or lose the next one, and then by the third one, you got completely blown out. And I don't want to see that. I want to see this team step up. People would just listen to Alan and I. We have been sitting here. We have been sitting here for a year now and telling people, hey, this team is on the brink. This team is if you go back and you look as the preseason progressed, we were both telling you this defense could be special. This defense could really do something. Now, what happened? What happened in Minnesota and then the following week in New Orleans? Wasn't the Saints, that was some other team wearing their jerseys.
You don't have. Yeah, I'll just say this real quick, and then you can keep on going. But I mean, what you didn't have, what you had in those two games, which you haven't had since, is you've got guys actually doing their assignments the way they're supposed to. They're running the defense as it's called instead of freelancing or blowing assignments because they're, one person thinks it's man, the other person thinks it's zone, and they're looking at each other, pointing like, hey, I thought we were doing this and you did this. You're not seeing that anymore.
Yeah.
Yes, Harris isn't out there anymore either. You see Ken Crawley out there instead. But regardless, it's all three levels of the defense. You're seeing much better production across the board. And to me, a lot of it has to do with Lattimore playing as well as he plays. You can kind of.
That's what I was about to ask.
Yeah, you can leave him on his own island.
Am I not correct in the fact that James Latt wasn't on the field, was he?
No, he was out there. But I mean, Harris is such an easy target in those first couple of games that they weren't even really going at Lattimore back then, even then. But the defense wasn't leaving Lattimore alone. They were giving him help. Now they're starting to leave him alone. I watched the Chicago game. He got no help, and he had his guys shut down. Craig Robertson coming in. Robertson is not as good an athlete as the rookie Alex Anzalone. Did I say it right this time?
Anzalone.
Close. Anzalone. See, again. All right. He's not. He is. He is not the athlete that Alex is, but he can make up for his athletic limitations with his intelligence, knowing how to play the game and getting in position. So you see much better linebacker play right now. And then Okafor has gotten more comfortable. He is playing at a high level. We're now seeing Rankins kind of turn the corner where you didn't see that in the first couple of games. Rankins is starting to play a lot better. And, of course, Cam Jordan's playing an all-pro level. So you're seeing a lot of improvement across the board, but it's people doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're getting that confidence now that, hey, the defense that's called, if we play it right, it works. And, that sounds like you should believe that from the get-go. But when it's not working because you're making mistakes, then you start pressing, then you stop trusting your teammates to do their jobs. You're trying to do their job as well as your job. And it's a whole domino effect. And that's the difference between good teams and bad teams. And I think that's why the defense is playing so much better now. They're starting to see that.
I don't want there to be any misunderstanding, at least point. I don't want there to be any misunderstanding at all, including my all-time favorite quarterback ever in the history of this league, Drew Brees.
I thought you were going to say Billy Joe Hobart.
All right. No, it was until Drew came along.
Yeah.
As long as this team continues to stack W's on the field, I don't care why they're doing, I don't care what they're doing. As long as they continue to win, to me.
I mentioned this earlier on a thread elsewhere, and we have to wrap this up now. So I'm going to say this real quick. This team has a kind of a Jim Moore feel to me. And I don't mean that to compare this defense to Dome Patrol. That's not what I'm saying. It's got a Jim Moore feel because you're winning with defense. You're relying on your kicking game as a, because Morstead's playing at an elite level. Lutz is playing at a Pro Bowl level. to kind of get you your points. And Drew Brees is clearly not Bobby Hebert. He's much better than Hebert, but the offense is not as explosive as you would expect. So it's kind of got that Carl Smith kind of feel to it, where we're moving the ball up and down the field. We're not getting a lot of points.
Bite your tongue.
Yeah, sorry. And we know what happened to those teams when they got to the playoffs, when they got to the next level. Yeah, they won 11 games. They won 12 games. They won 10 games. But they never won a playoff game. And it's because they could never reach and get that second level. So while the defense is playing well enough to help an offense win, and the defense is playing well enough that if the offense is sputtering, they don't have to score more than 20-something points, because the defense is what? Held teams to a shutout, 6 points, 24 points, 12 points, I think. You're not giving up. It's not shootouts anymore. You're getting – the defense is holding a team, except for Detroit, under 20 points a game, which are games that under Jim Mora, you hold them under 20 points, you're going to win. When it gets
the Detroit game, because you're not going to be playing against a Matt Stafford every week.
No, but you will in the playoffs, and that's the difference. You're playing against much better teams in the playoffs who score a lot more points. So this offense has to get on track. So the defense is playing well enough to win 10, 11, 12 games this season. Looking at the schedule, if you go 4-2, this is what we said yesterday, or last week, I should say. You go 4-2 in a division with the record you have right now, you're winning 11 games, okay? Because you need to go 4-2 in our division. You have to go 3-1 over the next 4 non-divisional games, which is the Jets, Bills, Rams, and Redskins. You either go 3-1 or 2-2 against those games. You're looking at worst, what, an 8-8 season? That's still good enough to win a division. So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities that you can do as long as with this defense to win games, but you get to the playoffs, it's just not good enough.
Well, this team definitely has way more work to be done than it has work that it has done.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of room between now and where this team is going and where this team has to be when it gets there.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the good thing is the players know it, the team knows it, and they talk about it that way. They know they haven't played 4 consistent quarters. I have a feeling when we get 4 good quarters out of this offense, we play that complete game on offense, it's going to be an unbelievable game. It's going to be one of those, 2009 Saints versus New England Patriots kind of game. It's going to be one of those, just pick your poison 2011 when we just really took it 2 teams.
Indianapolis.
I don't know if we're going to be a 62-7 kind of game, but we could against the Jets. If this offense plays the level they can play at and this defense shuts the Jets offense down, oh yeah, you could get that kind of game out of the Jets.
I'll take it. I'll take it. We have some really interesting opponents coming up. As you alluded to, the Rams and Seattle on the Bills. I've got to see a little bit more out of them before I think that they're going to be the dominating team in the AFC like everyone has anointed them. The Jets are scary to me because just like the way I feel about the Bills, you don't know what you're getting with them right now. There's a tender effort. The next week they stink the place up. I'm not convinced that either one of those. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that neither one of them could beat the Saints. I'm not going to say that at all because I made that mistake the last time the Saints went to New York and played, and I won't ever do that again.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The Jets and the Bills games are two games that we have to win. We'll talk about those as it gets closer, but you have to win those two games, and I would like us to go 5-1 in the division at worst. No one's ever swept the division. No team's ever swept our division. But if we sweep the Bucs and starting this week, and we sweep the Panthers, and at worst split with the Falcons in their leaky roof stadium. Have you heard about that?
Yes.
The Megatron's butthole has anal leakage. You have water leaking, and some fan tries to say that it was just a little bit of water dripping out on the 50-yard line. I'm like, that's perfect. That's dead center. That's where the anal leakage is coming from. So yeah, they have to keep the stadium roof closed the rest of the year because it's leaking water. So that's beautiful. That's perfect. That's why I had to retweet that story. I'm like, it's the Falcons are the team that just keeps giving us more and more jokes. It never fails.
A guy sent me a message today. He said, "Man, have you heard that is leaking?" I said, "Points."
Well, Megatron's butthole can't stay open anymore. That's just awesome. That really is. And somebody said they hope there's a monsoon the night the Saints play the Falcons in Atlanta, which I think is a Thursday night game, because they would like nothing better to show on national TV water coming out of the roof, the whole ball game. That just would be awesome. So I don't know if that'll happen. I could see him just putting a 5-gallon bucket out in the middle of the field. That 5-gallon Home Depot special orange bucket right there in the middle of the field. Perfect.
Would be for the Megatron's butthole to be stuck.
Oh, anyway, all right. It's 9:30. I want to see what kind of game.
For all World Series fans, is the six. The Dodgers have tied up those 1-1. Verlander's still on the hill, but he's looking shaky. Astros win tonight. They are world champs.
It's going to Game 7. It's going to Game 7.
I'm afraid.
It just has to.
Deserve to go to the.
I'll be honest. Game 4 should have been Game 7. It's one of those kind of games. Game 4 should have been Game 7, and you need to have that final game, a 7-game series, World Series, and Dodgers just
scored it 2-1. Dodgers, bottom of the sixth.
Yeah,
I have to say this. While I am absolutely 100%, I'm absolutely 100% all football. I do follow baseball, and I have to say that in the past couple of days, I have seen 2 of the absolute most incredible baseball games that I've ever seen in my life in this World Series between these two teams. It's been absolutely amazing.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's let you guys get back to watching the World Series, and we'll see you next week. Hopefully next week we've won our game 6 games in a row, and hopefully Carolina puts Atlanta out of their misery for another week, because I was really mad the Jets couldn't do it for us, because I'd much rather face Carolina battling for a playoff spot than Atlanta, because I don't want Atlanta to have any confidence. I really want them, because I know we can beat Cam Newton, and I know we can beat Atlanta, but I don't like the idea of Atlanta having any confidence. I want them to fold their tents and go home too. I want that Super Bowl hangover to really affect the psyche of that franchise and that fan base. So anyway, we'll talk about those games too at a later time. Thank you guys for joining us on this Halloween, and we'll see you next week on Under the Dome. Good night, everybody.
Love you.